Welcome. Please comment where you're watching in the world. Leave a like and sub if you enjoy the stories. My name is Leandro, and this is my Tinder horror story. I shake as I type and recall the moment. I've always considered myself the sort of guy who walks the line, the quiet type people overlook, the one who doesn't cause trouble. I grew up in Missoula, Montana, a city nestled between rivers and mountains. I avoided the typical high school drama, stayed away from parties, never smoked, never drank, and didn't get involved with anyone romantically. I was the good kid, the one you'd trust to feed your cat or return your library books on time. But even good kids can fall apart. I want to be honest up front. What happened to me didn't come out of nowhere. It came from years of questions I didn't know how to ask and feelings I didn't know how to name. I suppose a lot of people would say I snapped, but that's not quite right. It was more like I unraveled. I've always been drawn to both women and men, not in a loud rainbow flag waving way, but in a quiet, confusing, hold your breath sort of way. If you met me, you probably wouldn't guess. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friends. I wasn't ashamed, really, just cautious. Missoula isn't a hateful place, but it isn't exactly a haven for people who don't fit into neat boxes either. So like a lot of lonely people, I turned to the internet. I started with the usual dating apps, mostly looking for women. That felt safe, expected, but the longer I swiped, the more empty it felt. The women I matched with either didn't respond or seemed like they were there for something I couldn't give. I went on a few awkward coffee dates. One woman asked me to send $400 for a car repair before our first meeting. I blocked her. Another showed up to our date, clearly high, and told me she was only there because her ex was stalking her and she needed to make him jealous. I paid for her soda and left early. After a few months, I stopped pretending. I downloaded an app called Torch, kind of like Grindr but smaller, more discreet. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to talk to. Maybe to kiss. Maybe more. I was tired of holding my breath. That's where I met Farid. He messaged me first. His profile said he was 31, Turkish-American, tall, with a body built like he did physical labor. His photo showed him shirtless in a forest, holding a camera. He looked like the kind of guy you'd see in a cologne ad. Confident, unbothered, real. Our conversation started simple. He asked about my favorite music. I told him I liked Bon Iver. He said he liked Tool. He teased me for being soft, but in a way that felt flirty, not cruel. Within an hour, we were sending voice notes back and forth. His voice was deep and smooth, like a late-night radio host. I was hooked. The first time we met, it wasn't a date. He invited me over to his place on the outskirts of town, near the lumber yards. I told myself I wouldn't stay long. His house was dark. Not dirty exactly, but full of strange things. Animal skulls on the wall. Books in languages I couldn't read. A huge, framed photo of a wolf, taken so close it looked like it could bite you. But when I walked in, he smiled like we were old friends. He offered me a drink. I declined. He didn't push. We talked for hours, sitting shoulder to shoulder on the couch. He didn't make a move until I did. And when he kissed me, it was like the floor disappeared. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was free. That night was the first of many. I started seeing him every weekend, sometimes during the week. My life began to orbit around him. I stopped checking the apps. I stopped seeing my friends. I told myself it was because I was finally happy. But Farid wasn't just a lover. He was a mirror that warped the longer I looked into it. He liked control. At first, it was little things. He picked the music. He told me not to wear cologne because it messed with his senses. He said my laugh was too loud and asked me to keep it down. I told myself he was just intense, passionate. Then he started telling me who I could see. Don't talk to your ex, he said. She doesn't want you to be happy. Then it was my classmates. You don't need them. They don't get you. Then it was my family. The sex changed too. It got darker, rougher. He wanted to role play, but not in a fun way. He liked to pretend he was a captor, and I was something he'd caught. He liked to tie me up. He liked to make me beg. I didn't like it, but I didn't want to lose him. One night, it crossed a line. He choked me. Not playfully. Not lovingly. He cut off my air until I passed out. When I woke up, he was on the couch, watching a documentary about serial killers. He didn't say sorry. He didn't even look at me. I told myself it was a one-time thing. A mistake. But it wasn't. He started bringing out knives. He never cut me, but he'd press the blade against my skin and whisper things. You trust me, don't you? I nodded. Every time. I didn't want to believe he was dangerous. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was dramatic, sensitive. That's what he told me too. But then he asked me to do something I couldn't ignore. He wanted me to hurt an animal. A real one. He brought a box to the house early one morning. Inside was a rabbit, white and shaking. He said we were going to make a memory. He handed me a hammer. I dropped it. I told him I couldn't. I started crying. He didn't get angry. He just stared at me like I was a broken toy. Then he laughed. "You're not ready," he said. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my phone or my wallet. I don't remember the drive home. I remember locking the door behind me and collapsing in the hallway shaking. I blocked his number. I deleted the app. I changed the locks. But he didn't go away. He showed up at the diner where I worked. He sat in a booth and stared at me for an hour. He didn't order anything. He sent me letters. Handwritten. Pages and pages about how I'd betrayed him. How I'd ruined us. How I was just like the others. I went to the police. They said without proof of violence, there wasn't much they could do. So I got a restraining order. That was 6 months ago. Some nights, I still wake up gasping. I still check the locks twice before I go to bed. I still flinch when I see a white rabbit in a field. People say, "Why didn't you leave sooner?" But they don't understand. When you've spent your whole life being the good kid, the safe one, the one who never makes waves, it's hard to believe that danger could come wrapped in desire. That someone who makes you feel seen could also make you disappear. I don't date anymore. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm still here. Still breathing. Still trying to remember that survival isn't weakness. It's strength. People think working the night shift at a motel is boring. They imagine hours of scrolling through your phone, sipping burnt coffee, maybe watching a raccoon shuffle across the parking lot. And sometimes, yeah, it is like that. But there's also something else, something quieter. The way the dark presses against the windows. The way every creak sounds like a footstep. The way strangers check in, and you never really know if they're passing through or hiding from something. I was 24 when I took the job at the Desert Pines Inn, a low-slung 2-story off I-40 in Flagstaff. I dropped out of college, needed money, and didn't want to work in food service again. The pay was okay, and the owner, Mrs. Lerner, was rarely around. I liked the solitude. It was late October when I matched with Nolan. I'd downloaded Tinder again out of boredom. I wasn't looking for anything serious. Just someone to flirt with. Maybe trade some banter. Maybe more if I was feeling brave. Nolan's profile wasn't flashy. Just him in a denim jacket, standing next to a motorcycle. Buzzed hair, sharp jawline, dark eyes. "Not here to play games," his bio read. "Just want real talk and real touch." We matched at 1:12 a.m. I was behind the front desk, legs curled under me, watching the security camera feed on mute. Most of the guests were asleep. Room 9 had just checked in, a couple passing through on their way to Albuquerque. Nolan messaged first. "Nolan, you up?" I laughed softly. "Classic. Me. I'm literally at work." "Nolan, what do you do?" "Me. Night clerk. Motel." "Nolan, sounds hot." "Me. It's mostly boredom and stale coffee." "Nolan, where?" I paused. Normally I wouldn't say. But something about his tone, casual, disarming, made my guard slip. "Me, Desert Pines. You probably haven't heard of it," he replied with a smiley face. Then, "Nolan, I know it. Stayed there once. Room 12. I blinked at the screen. That was a little weird. "Me, did you like it?" "Nolan, loved it. Especially the night clerk." I froze. I hadn't been working here long, maybe 2 months. I didn't remember him. But something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. Still, I kept chatting. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I was reckless. He asked what I was wearing. I described it honestly, oversized hoodie, leggings, fuzzy socks. He said he liked that. Said it made me sound soft and real. He asked if I was alone. I told him yes. He said, "I'd keep you company." I didn't respond. A few minutes later, a car pulled into the lot. Black SUV. No plates. My heart kicked up. I watched on the camera as the driver parked near room 12. The man inside didn't get out. He just sat there. Headlights off. I messaged Nolan. "Me. Is that you in the SUV?" No reply. I waited. The man in the car didn't move. Not for 2 minutes. Not for 5. I stood up and peeked through the blinds. The SUV was still there. The front windshield looked like a black mirror. Then my phone buzzed. "Nolan, you have nice eyes." I stepped away from the window. Me. Where are you? Nolan. Close. The SUV door opened. A man stepped out, tall, buzzed hair, denim jacket. He walked toward the office. I locked the door. He knocked, 3 sharp raps. I didn't answer. He knocked again. Then he smiled, pressed a piece of paper to the glass. It said, Room 12. Let's talk. I called the police. By the time they showed up, he was gone. SUV vanished. No trace. They took my statement, drove a loop around the area, and told me to be careful. Probably just someone messing with you, one of the officers said. But keep the door locked. I didn't sleep. The next night, I didn't open Tinder. But at 2:04 a.m., I got a text. Unknown. Didn't mean to scare you. You looked lonely. I blocked the number. I didn't tell Mrs. Lerner. I didn't want to lose the job. A few days passed. Then Nolan checked in. Not under his name. I wouldn't have known if I hadn't recognized him immediately. He walked in around midnight, sunglasses on, even though it was dark. Said his name was Eli. Paid in cash. Asked for a room away from the road. I gave him room 7, hands shaking. He looked at my name tag. Ivy, he said. Pretty name. I nodded. He smiled and left. I watched him walk to the room. He never looked back. I didn't call the cops. I didn't know what to say. But I told my coworker the next day I needed time off. I stayed home for a week. When I returned, room 7 was empty. But on the front desk, under the counter, someone had slipped a Polaroid. It was of me, taken through the office window. I was sitting at the desk, head down, sketching in my journal. On the back, in sharp black ink, "You're even prettier when you're not talking." I quit the next day. I moved to Albuquerque, stayed with a cousin, changed my number, deleted every dating app I'd ever used. Sometimes I wonder what he wanted. I met Theo on a warm September evening, right after my 22nd birthday. Santa Fe was still holding on to summer, golden light spilling over the rooftops, monsoon clouds humming at the edges of the sky. I'd been living there for less than a year, a recent transfer student at the Southwest College of Art. I was trying to start over, let go of the mistakes I'd made back in Phoenix. Tinder felt like an easy distraction, a way to meet someone without having to explain who I used to be. We talked for hours after I swiped. He had a dry sense of humor, bordering on cynical. He said he played synth and bass, mostly experimental stuff. He asked about my art. I told him I liked painting bodies in unnatural colors, lavender skin, green mouths, bleeding gold. He said he wanted to see them. That's rare, I said. What is? A guy who wants to see my paintings before my body. He replied, who says I don't want both? I laughed, flirted back. It felt like we were circling something electric. After a few days of texting, he asked to meet. Come to my place, he said. I've got a studio in my garage. I'll play you a song I wrote. Then I'll make you tea. We can sit on the floor like teenagers and talk about everything we're scared of. I hesitated. Or, he said, we can meet at a coffee shop and have an awkward first date under fluorescent lights. I chose the studio. I was curious, and a little reckless. His house was tucked into the outskirts of Santa Fe, near the foothills. Adobe-style, flat-roofed, with a dusty blue door and wind chimes made from old spoons. I parked on the street and texted him. He met me at the door barefoot, wearing a Joy Division t-shirt and jeans with a hole in the knee. You're taller than I thought, I said. You're prettier than you think, he replied. He led me through the house, dim, cluttered, filled with half-soldered electronics and stacks of records. The garage door was closed tight, and inside, it felt like a different world. The walls were covered in foam paneling. Guitars hung from hooks. A synthesizer with blinking lights sat under a red desk lamp. There was a small couch, a floor mattress, a heavy black curtain dividing the back half of the room. Soundproofed, he said. I like to get lost in here. He handed me a pair of headphones and played a song. It was eerie, ambient synth layered with distorted vocals. His voice looped and warped, repeating, You said you'd stay. You said you'd stay. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, he was watching me. You okay? I asked. He nodded slowly, then smiled. You felt it? That's rare. I laughed nervously. It was intense. He made us tea, something herbal with a bitter kick. We sat on the floor, knees touching. We talked about ghosts, about childhood fears, about the way certain songs make you ache in places you didn't know existed. I told him about the first person who broke my heart. He told me about the time he tried to build an instrument out of bones. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. They were animal bones, he said. Mostly. I must have looked uneasy because he reached out and touched my knee. I'm weird, not dangerous. I smiled, even though my pulse had quickened. He leaned in. We kissed. It was slow at first, his lips soft, his hand warm on my back. Then deeper. His fingers slid under the hem of my shirt. I didn't stop him. It had been a long time since I felt wanted. We moved to the mattress on the floor. Clothes came off in pieces. The room was warm, dark, silent except for our breathing and the soft hum of the amp still on in the corner. He was intense. Not rough, but focused. Like he was trying to memorize every part of me through touch. He whispered things, unusual things, while he moved inside me. Don't disappear, he said. Stay here, he breathed. Be still. After, I pulled the blanket over myself and tried to catch my breath. He sat up and lit an incense stick. I asked if I could use the bathroom. Down the hall, he said. Second door. I wrapped myself in my shirt and padded through the house. The hallway was darker than I expected. I opened the first door, not the bathroom. It was a bedroom, and it made me freeze. There were photos pinned to the wall. Dozens of them, all of women. Some were selfies. Some looked like they were taken without consent, through windows in parking lots. I stepped closer. My skin prickled. One of the photos was me. From that night, standing outside my car, looking at my phone. I stumbled back and slammed the door shut. The second door was the bathroom. I locked it, heart pounding. My legs felt like water. I stared at my face in the mirror, trying to think. What the hell had I walked into? I got dressed. Quietly. Quickly. When I stepped back into the studio, Theo was sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. I'm not feeling great, I said, grabbing my bag. I think I'm gonna head out. He didn't answer. I moved toward the door. He stood up. You weren't supposed to see that. My throat tightened. See what? He walked toward me slowly. You don't understand the context. I need to go. You're not listening. I bolted. I made it to the front door and out into the night. He didn't follow. I drove away with shaking hands, barely able to breathe. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I reported him to campus security, even though he wasn't a student, and then to the police. They went to the house. It was empty. No furniture. No instruments. Just dust and a few stray cables on the floor. The address had been a rental. Paid in cash. No forwarding information. No ID. Theo, if that was even his name, was gone. I deleted Tinder. Blocked the number he'd used. Was I the next photo? The next name pinned to the wall? Or something worse? I used to think I was good at spotting creeps. I worked in a bar off 6th Avenue in Tacoma, and after 2 years of serving drinks to slurring regulars and frat boys who thought smile more was a compliment, I figured I had a decent radar. But nothing I saw behind that bar prepared me for Felix. We matched on Tinder in early spring, when everything still felt gray and wet, and the idea of dating again didn't seem like a mistake yet. I'd been single for about 6 months after ending a situationship with someone who thought texting, "you up," counted as affection. I wasn't looking for love, just someone to flirt with, maybe grab a drink, maybe kiss in a parked car while pretending it was still high school. Felix's profile was simple. No shirtless gym selfies. No fishing photos. Just a clean-cut guy in his late 20s, leaning against a car wearing a navy peacoat. His smile was crooked but charming. His bio said, quiet, intentional, curious. I like long drives and bad horror movies. I messaged him first. He responded within minutes. We talked for a few days. He was articulate, funny in a dry, almost academic way, a little shy but attentive. He asked good questions, about my work, my art, my tattoos. He said he liked women who knew what they wanted. I told him I wanted a night out that didn't feel like babysitting. He offered to pick me up. I hesitated. Just drinks, he said. Nothing weird. I promise. I gave him my address, and I wished to God I hadn't. He texted around 7 p.m. Outside, smiley face. I looked through the curtain. A black sedan was parked across the street, engine running. The windows were tinted, but I could see someone in the driver's seat. I grabbed my bag, texted my roommate, and headed out. But when I opened the car door, something felt off. The man behind the wheel wasn't Felix. He was older, late 40s maybe, thick hands gripping the steering wheel, wearing a dark hoodie and a ball cap pulled low. I stepped back. Sorry, I think I got the wrong car. He smiled. No, you didn't. Felix sent me. My stomach went cold. I'm his dad, the man said like that made it normal. Why would his dad be picking me up? He got called into work. I'm just giving you a ride. I didn't move. Come on, he said. Don't be rude. I slammed the door shut and backed away. He peeled off without another word. I ran inside and locked the door. I texted Felix. Me? What the hell? Felix, what? Me. Your dad just tried to pick me up? Felix, oh, he was just helping. Me, that's not okay. That's creepy as hell. Felix, you didn't have to be mean about it. Felix, he's a good guy. Just nervous. Felix, he really wanted to meet you. I blocked him. Told myself it was over. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. The next night, I worked a closing shift at the bar. Got out around 2 a.m. It was cold, misty. I called a cab since my car was in the shop. A few minutes later, a black sedan pulled up. Same make. Same color. Same car. I stood under the awning staring at it. The back passenger window rolled down. And there he was. The same man. Felix's dad. You called a ride? He asked casually. I shook my head. I'm good. You sure? He said. It's late. Dangerous to be alone. I stepped back toward the bar door and knocked until my co-worker let me inside. I didn't even explain. Just said, that guy's following me. We called the police. By the time they arrived, the car was gone. Again. I filed a report. Gave them the messages. The description of the car. The man's face. They told me to stay somewhere else for a few days. Maybe crash with a friend. I stayed with my sister in Gig Harbor and didn't go home for a week. I kept expecting the texts to stop. But then they started again. This time from a different number. Unknown. I'm sorry about the car thing. Unknown. He just wanted to protect you. Unknown. You're special. We both saw that. Unknown. You look beautiful in that red coat. Unknown. I'll try again. You'll say yes this time. I called the number. It rang once, then went to voicemail. The recording was just breathing. I changed my number. I moved apartments. I deleted Tinder. I thought that would be enough. But a month later, a letter showed up at my new place. No return address. Inside was a photo. It was me, taken from behind as I walked into my new building. And on the back, in messy handwriting, you looked lost. I can help you get home. I moved again. This time out of state. I didn't tell anyone where. I wasn't supposed to be on the internet that night. It was the summer of 1998, and I was 16, holed up in my room in Indianapolis with the slow whir of a box fan and the dial-up modem screeching like it was possessed. My parents were asleep downstairs, and I was supposed to be working on summer reading. Instead, I was logged into an AOL chat room called Indie Late Night. Back then, the internet still felt like a dream you could walk through. Everyone was anonymous. Everyone had a weird screen name. Mine was derail17. I thought it was cool. I'd been chatting for a couple hours when I got a private message. Lunadream_9. I like your vibe. You seem different. Her profile said she was 17, lived in Bloomington, and liked books, storms, and secret games. Her profile pic was a grainy webcam shot, just her eyes and the edge of a smile. It was blurry, but she looked pretty. Soft, pale skin. Dark bangs. I replied. Of course I did. We hit it off fast. She was smart, funny, kind of intense. The kind of girl who'd quote Poe one moment and ask if I'd ever kissed someone in the rain the next. I was hooked. She asked me what I looked like. I said tall, skinny, brown hair, awkward smile. She said she liked awkward. She said awkward was honest. Then she asked a question that made me pause. Lunadream_9. Do you like games, Darren? I didn't know what she meant. She clarified. Lunadream_9. The kind where someone gives the rules and the other person just follows. I thought it was a joke. I played along. Said something stupid like, sure, as long as I don't have to eat mayonnaise. She sent a smiley face, then said, Lunadream_9. What if I told you I was playing a game right now? I asked what kind. She replied, Lunadream_9. One where I see how far I can go before you get scared. I laughed. Nervously. She didn't. Then she asked, Lunadream_9. Ever done anything private on cam? I hadn't. I didn't even have a webcam. But I said, maybe. She said she had one. Asked if I wanted to see her. I said yes before I even thought twice. She sent me a link to a private video chat room. The screen loaded slow. My heart was pounding. When the video finally came on, she was sitting in a dark room lit by candles. Her face was partially hidden behind her hair. She wore a thin tank top with spaghetti straps and a choker. Something about the way she looked into the camera made me forget how to breathe. She leaned closer and said, "You're cute." I didn't know what to say. Then she said, "But it's not just me here." My stomach dropped. A man stepped into frame. He was older, maybe in his 20s. Shaved head, wearing a black hoodie. He didn't speak. He stood behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. She didn't flinch. She smiled. "I told you," she said. "It's a game." I froze. The man leaned down and whispered something in her ear. She nodded. Then she said, "He wants to talk to you." I closed the window, logged off the site. My hands were shaking. A minute later, she messaged me again. Lunadream_9. "Why'd you leave?" "It was just getting fun." I didn't reply. She kept messaging. Lunadream_9. "He said you looked scared." Lunadream_9. "Scared is cute." Lunadream_9. "Don't you want to meet us?" I blocked her. I logged off. I sat there for a long time, staring at my reflection in the monitor, heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't know what had just happened, but it didn't feel like a joke anymore. The next night, I got an email. No subject line, just a message. "You look good in that red shirt." I had worn a red shirt that night. Nothing on my profile had a photo. I hadn't told anyone where I lived. I didn't sleep. I unplugged the modem. Asked my parents if I could move the computer into the living room. Told them I felt weird being online in my room. They didn't ask questions. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then I got another email. This time with a photo attached. It was blurry, taken through a window. Of me, sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal. Alone. I told my dad. He freaked out. Called the police. We filed a report. The cops said they'd look into it, but this was 1998. There was no way to trace an anonymous email from a Yahoo account. No IP tracking. No digital footprints. No way to explain why a 16-year-old boy was being watched by someone he met on a chat room. I deleted everything. The account. The messages. My screen name. I didn't go back online for months. But I never forgot her. Lunadream_9. Sometimes I wonder if she was real at all. Or if she was just bait. A mask. A trap. Whatever she was, she taught me something I'll never forget. When someone says, "It's just a game," ask who's watching. And who's really playing. I was raised on horror movies, true crime podcasts, and the kind of brotherly dares that leave you locked in a cemetery overnight with nothing but a flashlight and a half-dead phone. But none of that prepared me for Delilah. I met her on Tinder, right after a breakup that had left me raw and restless. I was 26, living alone in a 2-bedroom rental in Chico, California. I'd lived there for about a year, close enough to my family in Sacramento to visit, far enough that I could forget the weight of expectations. I worked from home as a data analyst, which meant I had a lot of time to think and not a lot of people to talk to. Tinder helped with that. She matched with me within minutes. Her first message was, "You're hard to find." I assumed it was a joke. I replied with a smiley face and asked her what she meant. She said, "I had to reset my filters. You weren't showing up before." We messaged for hours that night. She was odd, but not in a creepy way. She had a strange rhythm to her speech, like she was always a few steps ahead in the conversation. She asked questions that felt too specific. "Do you keep your blinds open at night? And have you ever seen someone standing at the edge of your yard?" I chalked it up to a dark sense of humor. I asked if she wanted to meet. "Soon," she said. "I'm waiting for the right time." The next few days, we kept talking. She never sent photos beyond her original profile picture. Her Instagram was private. Her voice notes were short, breathy, and always ended abruptly, as if someone was about to walk in. Still, I was intrigued. She seemed to know things about me she shouldn't. She mentioned the color of my front door red, the sticker on my car bumper, a faded NASA logo, and the type of cereal I'd bought that morning, Honey Bunches of Oats. "I saw it in your story," she said. I hadn't posted a story. I asked her straight up, "Are you watching me?" She replied with a photo. It was of me, sitting on my porch the night before, scrolling through my phone. The lighting was dim, but it was unmistakably me. I was wearing a gray hoodie, same as I had when I took the trash out. I stared at the photo for a full minute before texting, "Where are you?" Her reply, "Close." The next morning, I called a friend, Jordan, who worked in IT security. I told him what was going on, tried to laugh it off. "She's probably just messing with you," he said. "Creepy, yeah, but it's probably some prank." "From who?" "Maybe an ex? Someone who wants to freak you out." I hadn't been with anyone since Amanda, and she was more likely to ghost me than stalk me. That night, I locked every door and window. I pulled the blinds shut. I turned off location sharing on every app one could think of. Then I got another message. It was a photo again. This time, it was of my living room, taken from outside the window. I hadn't told anyone where I lived. I didn't sleep that night. I left every light on. My heart stuttered at every creak and shadow. When the sun finally rose, I felt like I'd aged a decade. I reported her profile on Tinder. It disappeared within the hour. But the texts kept coming, now from an unknown number. "Why'd you do that?" Another message. I thought we were getting closer. I didn't reply. The next day, I went to the police. They told me to document everything. "Unless she physically enters your property or threatens you directly, there's not much we can do," the officer said, sounding exhausted. "What about the photos?" "She hasn't trespassed." "Not technically." I left with a case number and a pamphlet about online safety. That night, the messages stopped. For 2 days, there was silence. I started to relax. Told myself it was over. Maybe she'd moved on to someone else. Maybe she realized she crossed a line. Then on the third night, I heard something. A knock. Not on the front door. On the bedroom window. I froze. The knock came again. 3 slow taps. Then silence. I grabbed my phone and called 911, hands shaking. I didn't look out the window. I couldn't. The dispatcher stayed on the line until the police arrived. They searched the yard, the alley, even the neighbor's property. Nothing. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there. One officer looked at me and said, "Are you sure it wasn't a tree branch?" I wanted to scream. I didn't sleep again. The next day, I installed cameras around the property. I bought motion lights. I called Jordan and asked if he could help me trace the messages. He tried, but the number was a burner. No name. No trail. Then the group photo came. It was sent around 2 a.m. from a new number. I didn't see it until morning. There were 5 people in it, 4 men and a woman, all wearing dark hoodies, all standing on the sidewalk in front of my house, staring straight at the camera. The woman in the middle was holding a sign. It said, "I'll see you soon." I called the police again. This time they took it more seriously. An officer came by, took my phone as evidence, and promised to increase patrols in the area. I asked if they could trace the photo. "We'll try," he said, "but don't expect a miracle." I didn't leave the house for 3 days. I had groceries delivered. I called my boss and told him I needed time off. I couldn't eat, couldn't think. Every night, I waited for the knock. It didn't come. Not yet. Then one morning, I got a call from Jordan. "I found something," he said. "You're not gonna like it." He'd been digging into the metadata of the photo, nothing useful there. But he'd run the image through a reverse search and found a match. Not the photo itself, but the people in it. One of the guys in the image had been arrested in Oregon 2 years earlier for breaking and entering. Another had been linked to a cult-style group in Utah. The woman, Delilah, had no record, but her online presence was strange. She ran a blog. It was full of entries about soul tethering and digital intimacy. She wrote about finding the ones who can't run, and how fear is the last obstacle before union. The last post was titled, Mateo. I read every word. It described my house, my routines, my favorite hoodie, things I'd never shared publicly. At the bottom, one sentence chilled me more than anything else. "Tonight, we'll meet in the space between dream and dread." I packed a bag and drove to Sacramento that afternoon. I stayed with my parents for a week. The text stopped. No photos, no knocks, just silence. Eventually I moved. Different city, new number, no social media. I haven't heard from Delilah again. But sometimes late at night, I still check the window. And when I close my eyes, I hear the knock. 3 slow taps, followed by silence. And I remember her last message. "I'll see you soon." I should have known the first time I saw Kenji's profile that something wasn't right. But I was 20, bored, and still learning to ignore the butterflies that came with red flags. You know the ones, not the obvious, screaming red, but the soft, faded kind that look a little like adventure if you squint enough. I was in my second year at the University of North Carolina in Asheville. A vibrant town, nestled in the mountains, full of crystals, kombucha, and people who said things like, "Let the universe decide." I'd come here from a tiny, flat place in rural Missouri, where the most spiritual thing I'd seen was the statue of the Virgin Mary in my grandmother's front yard. In Asheville, I was trying to find myself. I dyed my hair copper, got a nose ring, started meditating, and on a whim one night, downloaded a dating app called Lotus. It was marketed as for conscious connections, which sounded like a nice way of saying, not just hookups. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone who didn't think astrology was a joke or call me dude during sex. Kenji messaged me first. His profile photo was serene, him kneeling beside a koi pond in a linen shirt, surrounded by candles. His smile was close-lipped, thoughtful. His bio said he was 26, a traveling healer, offering workshops in energetic realignment and soul retrieval. I had no idea what that meant, but he seemed kind, warm, like he knew things I hadn't even begun to understand. Our messages were dreamy from the start. He asked what my aura color was. I joked that it was probably beige. He said he could help with that. We moved from the app to texts, then voice notes, then calls. I found myself staying up until 2 a.m. listening to him talk about the vibrational frequency of the moon and how trauma lives in the fascia. I didn't understand most of it, but his voice was like honey and ash. I was enchanted. He said he was only in Asheville for a few weeks, staying at a friend's place while planning a retreat in Costa Rica. "We should meet," he said. "You feel aligned." God, I wanted to be aligned. I invited him to the coffee house where I worked part-time. He showed up right at opening, wearing loose white pants and no shoes. No shoes. In public. He ordered ginger tea and tipped me $20 for a $3 cup. "I don't believe in paper limits," he said, nodding toward the tip jar. "Abundance flows to those who welcome it." He stayed for hours. We talked between customers. He asked about my family, my dreams, my biggest fear. Looking back, I realize I didn't ask much about him. He was a master at flipping conversations around, turning every answer I gave into something about presence or manifesting wholeness. He made me feel seen. We went on 2 more dates, if you could call them that. We meditated together in a field. He read my energy using a pendulum. We kissed under a weeping willow tree in the botanical gardens, his hands always gentle, never forceful. Then he invited me to a gathering. "It's a women's circle," he said, "but I think you're ready. Mairead will be there. She's the one who guides me." I hesitated. He leaned forward, took my hands, and said, "Don't you want to meet someone who can help you shed the parts of yourself that aren't truly yours?" I nodded. The gathering took place in a large house tucked away in the hills outside Asheville. I drove up a winding gravel road, surrounded by trees and fog. The house was cedar-sided, with wind chimes hanging from every corner. The door was open. Inside, it smelled like sandalwood and something vaguely metallic. Mairead greeted me in a flowing red robe. She was older, maybe 50, with piercing gray eyes and thick, silver-streaked hair. She kissed both my cheeks and said, "You've arrived." There were 5 other women already seated in a circle on the floor, all in various stages of undress. Some wore slips. One was topless. No one seemed uncomfortable. I sat down, heart pounding. Mairead lit a candle and began chanting in a language I didn't recognize. Kenji stood behind her, silent, watching me. The ceremony began. We were asked to share our fears, our shadows. I spoke about my people-pleasing, my anxiety, how I felt like I was always trying to be who others wanted me to be. Mairead nodded. "That's your wound. We can help you heal it." Then came the cleansing. One by one, we were asked to disrobe, to lie down in the center of the circle, to allow Mairead and Kenji to release attachments through touch. The other women went first. They didn't flinch when Kenji placed his hands on their stomachs, their thighs, sometimes between their legs. I was frozen. When it was my turn, I stood up and shook my head. "I'm not ready," I said, voice cracking. Mairead frowned. "Your resistance is your ego. Don't let it win." I don't want to." Kenji stepped forward. "Saffron, this is part of your healing." I looked around. The other women were watching me. Some with pity, some with blank expressions. I backed away. "I need to go." "You'll regret this," Mairead said, her voice suddenly sharp. "You're choosing pain." Kenji didn't move. I ran. I didn't even grab my shoes. I got in my car and drove barefoot back to my dorm. My feet were shaking. My phone buzzed nonstop. "Kenji, you're breaking your path." "Kenji, Mairead says you're cursed now." "Kenji, Come back. We'll forgive you. Kenji, I saw your fear. You're not ready for truth. Kenji, you'll never be whole without us. I blocked him. I blocked the women I'd met that night. Then I went to the police. They didn't take it seriously at first. Did anyone touch you without consent? They asked. No, I said. But they groomed me. They tried to lure me. I showed them the messages. I told them about the secluded house, about Maraid, about the cleansing ritual. They finally opened a report. A few weeks later, I got a call. The house was empty. The land was owned by a shell company. Maraid's name wasn't in any database. Kenji's phone number had been recycled. They were gone. I'll never know what would have happened if I'd stayed. If I'd laid down. If I'd said yes. I've never been the kind of girl who screams in horror movies. I laugh when the music swells and the girl runs upstairs instead of out the door. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula, where people leave their keys in the ignition and forget to lock their back doors. I've always felt safer in the woods than I do in a crowd. But all it takes is one person to ruin that sense of safety forever. Let me tell you about Andre. I was 17 when it started, old enough to think I knew how the world worked, young enough to still be stupid about it. I lived in Marquette, Michigan, a cold, quiet town on the edge of Lake Superior, where the snow piles up higher than the mailboxes by January and the nights stretch longer than your patience. I didn't have many friends. I wasn't unpopular, just invisible. I was the girl who sat in the back of the class doodling in the margins of her notebook. I liked books, anime, and photography. I didn't go to parties. I didn't drink. I didn't date. But I wanted to. I wanted what other girls had, attention, affection, someone to look at me like I was worth something. So I downloaded an app. Not Tinder, I was too young for that. It was a knockoff dating app, something called DateBridge, or maybe LinkMatch. It doesn't matter. They all work the same. Swipe, message, hope. That's how I met Andre. His profile said he was 16. He had dark hair, green eyes, and a tight-lipped smile like he didn't want to show his teeth. He said he was into art, writing, cosplay, and old horror movies. He messaged me first. Love your profile. You seem like someone who doesn't put up with fake people. I blushed reading that. It felt like a compliment wrapped in armor. I messaged him back. We talked every day. He was funny in a dry, sarcastic way. He liked the same anime I did. He sent me photos of his drawings, creepy, beautiful things. A girl with her mouth sewn shut. A wolf with human hands. He said he wanted to be a tattoo artist someday. He asked for pictures of me. Nothing bad at first. Just selfies. My face, my outfits, my hair when it was curled. I sent them. He said I looked like someone who belonged in a dream. I swallowed that like candy. When I asked for pictures of him, he said his phone camera was broken. I thought it was weird, but I didn't push. I should have. He started getting darker. He told me he spent a lot of time on mature websites. That he liked roleplay. That he wanted to try power exchange. I didn't even know what most of that meant. When he started asking for more personal pictures, I got uncomfortable. I told him no. He stopped talking to me for 3 days. When he came back, he apologized. Said he respected my boundaries. Said he just missed me. I forgave him. Because of course I did. A few days before Christmas, things got worse. I was in my room when I saw someone outside. It was late. Snow was falling in thick, lazy flakes. I was standing by the window, texting Andre, when I noticed a car parked across the street. A silver sedan, headlights off, engine running. A man got out. He pointed something at my house. Click. A camera. I froze. I told my mom. She didn't take it seriously. Just said, probably a neighbor. Don't worry about it. I saw him again on Christmas Day. Different car. Same man. Same camera. He parked further down the street this time, but I recognized the way he moved. The way he lifted the camera like it was part of his body. I told my mom again. This time, she believed me. We called the police. Before they arrived, she came into my room and saw my messages with Andre. She read everything. She took my laptop. My phone. Everything. The officer who came was gentle. He asked questions. Wrote things down. Promised to keep an eye on the area. The next day, he came back. I need to show you something, he said. He showed me a photo lineup of men known to law enforcement for online predation. On the 5th page, I saw him. The man with the camera. Andre. But his name wasn't Andre. It was Donald. Donald Vickers. 57 years old. No fixed address. Wanted in 3 states for internet-related offenses. He wasn't 16. He wasn't even close. The police searched a house 2 blocks from ours. A rental that had been vacant for months. At least, that's what everyone thought. Inside, they found photos. Some taken through windows. Some taken inside. Of me. Sleeping. There were pictures of me brushing my hair. Eating cereal. Walking to school. In one I was curled up in bed, and his hand, was reaching toward my face. They found a USB drive full of our chats. They found a folder labeled My Girl. They found one of my shirts. I don't know how he got it. He vanished before they could arrest him. No one knows where he went. Maybe out of state. Maybe out of the country. Maybe into another girl's life. I started therapy. I still have nightmares. I still check the locks 3 times before bed. I still flinch when I see silver sedans. It's been 7 years since it happened, and I still can't drive through the Crocus Lane neighborhood in Bismarck without feeling like I can't breathe. The trees still lean in the same way, the sidewalks still crack in the same places, and the houses still hold their secrets. I told myself I'd never talk about it, but it's time. I was 21 back then, a college senior, studying graphic design at a small university just outside of town. I'd never been someone who dated much, not in high school, not in my first years of college. I wasn't shy exactly, just slow to trust. I'd grown up in a quiet, conservative family. My hometown had more cows than people, and most of the dating I saw was either rushed or reckless. Neither appealed to me. But loneliness has a way of creeping in when you least expect it. It was early fall, just before the leaves turned. I'd been playing around with dating apps on and off, Tinder, Bumble, and something called Clover. That's where I met Victor. His profile was unremarkable. A couple of photos, one of him hiking, one of him standing next to a truck. He had a short bio, living life one day at a time, looking to meet someone genuine. That word, genuine, hooked me. He didn't look like a creep. Clean cut, maybe a little older than me, but not by much. I swiped right. We messaged for a few days. He wasn't overly flirty, didn't rush anything. Asked me about school, my hobbies, why I liked photography. He told me he worked in construction and was renting a house on the north end of town, near the river. Said he was new to Bismarck, just moved from Idaho. We exchanged numbers, then agreed to meet in person. I wish I could say I had a bad feeling, that some part of my brain screamed, don't go. But it didn't. He seemed normal, boring even. We made plans to meet at his place one afternoon after my classes. It was a weekday around noon. He said he didn't like coffee shops and preferred to talk somewhere quiet. I hesitated, but told myself it was fine. It was daylight. I'd be careful. I parked on the street. The neighborhood was eerily silent, the kind of silence that makes you think everyone's watching from behind curtains. The house was small, single-story, with fading blue paint and a crooked mailbox. It didn't feel threatening, just old. Victor came out before I knocked. He smiled, waved, and said, "Hey, come on in." I followed him inside. The house was cold. Not just chilly, cold in a way that seeped into your bones. The furniture was sparse. A couch without pillows. A table with no chairs. Most of the windows were covered with sheets instead of curtains. It looked more like a storage unit than a living space. Everything was blanketed in dust. He must have noticed the look on my face because he laughed nervously and said, "Yeah, I haven't really unpacked yet." I nodded, trying to be polite. "It's okay. I like minimalism." He offered me a bottle of water. I declined. "Want to go for a walk?" he asked. "There's a park nearby." Relieved, I agreed. The air inside the house was stale, heavy. I wanted out. We walked a few blocks toward a baseball field. The neighborhood felt deserted. No kids playing, no cars driving by. Just wind and leaves. We sat on the bleachers. He didn't say much. Just stared out across the field, like he was watching something I couldn't see. I pulled my jacket tighter. Out of nowhere, he asked, "You ever feel like people are just pretending?" I looked at him. Pretending what? Everything. Like they're putting on a show. Smiles. Jobs. Love. All of it. "I guess," I said slowly. "I mean, sometimes." He turned to me then. His expression had shifted. Sharper. Eyes narrowed. "You're not pretending, are you?" "No," I said, thrown off. "I'm just here." Something in his posture changed. He leaned closer. "You're real, right?" I forced a smile. "What do you mean?" And then he lunged. He shoved me backward off the bleachers. I hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of me. Before I could scream, he was on top of me, hands fumbling at my clothes. I kicked, punched, scratched, but he was stronger. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how it ends. But adrenaline is a strange and powerful thing. I got my knee up, hard, between his legs. He groaned and fell sideways just enough for me to scramble up and run. I didn't look back. Not once. I ran across the field, through a line of trees, and back to the street. Found my car, locked the doors, and drove. I don't remember the drive. I just remember shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I didn't go to the police that day. I couldn't. I went home, got in the shower fully clothed, and cried until the water ran cold. It took me a week to tell anyone. When I finally told my roommate, she gasped. "Leanne, you have to report this." I tried. I did. I called the non-emergency line, explained what happened. The dispatcher transferred me to an officer who asked me if I had any proof. I told him I had messages, a first name, a phone number. He sighed. "You didn't know his last name?" "No." "Did he actually assault you?" I paused. "He tried, but didn't succeed?" "No." There was a long silence. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Without more information, there's not much we can do." I hung up. And then, like something out of a horror movie, I went back. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted proof. I returned to the house that weekend, parked in the same spot, sat in my car for 10 minutes, heart pounding. Finally, I got out and knocked on the door. 3 men were sitting on the porch, older, rough-looking, smoking cigarettes. One of them stood up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Victor," I said. They looked at each other. "No one named Victor lives here." He just moved in," I said. "A few weeks ago." The man shook his head. "Nope. This place has been empty for months. With a crew fixing it up for the landlord." My stomach dropped. "But I was here," I whispered. He let me in. The man frowned. "You sure you got the right house?" I glanced at the door. It was cracked. Barely noticeable, but cracked. I turned and ran back to my car. They called after me, but I didn't stop. I drove home and deleted every app from my phone. I reported Victor's profile on Clover. It disappeared the next day. My name is Priya, and I'm not someone who usually shares personal stories online. But here we go. This happened during my second year at Hollins University, just outside Roanoke, Virginia. It's a quiet campus, small, wrapped in trees and old brick buildings that always smell a little like rain. I'd just moved into a single dorm, a blessing after a tense first year with a roommate who left candle wax in all my mugs, and I was starting to settle into a rhythm. Classes, late-night ramen, study groups, and the occasional party if I felt brave enough. I've always been the kind of person who trusts too easily. I forgive too quickly. Maybe that's why what happened with Kaito still clings to me like smoke. We met on Tinder. I wasn't even looking for anything serious. I just wanted someone to talk to, maybe hang out with. Swipe, 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 and there he was, Kaito. Japanese-American, lived in California, but was in Virginia visiting family. His profile was simple, looking for good conversation and better coffee. His photos showed him smiling in the sunlight, walking a dog, holding a guitar. He didn't seem like trouble. He messaged me first. "Hey, I'm only in town for a little while, but I'd love to meet someone cool before I head back." Normally, I'd hesitate, but I was lonely. I'd just ended a casual thing with someone who ghosted me after 3 weeks, and Kaito seemed gentle, thoughtful. We talked for days. About books, movies, music. He told me he played guitar in a band back home. I told him I was studying environmental science with a minor in creative writing. He said he liked that I had a serious brain and a soft heart. I melted a little. After a week, I invited him over. My dorm had a kitchenette and no roommate, and he seemed excited. "I've never been to Virginia before," he said. "It's beautiful here. You're beautiful here." I laughed. We made dinner together, watched an old Studio Ghibli movie. One thing led to another, and he stayed the night. He stayed for the next 2 nights too. On the 3rd day, he said he had to fly back to California. I was sad but not surprised. We weren't serious. We hadn't even defined what we were. That's when things started to shift. A few days after he left, I casually texted him. Random question. "How do you feel about mint chocolate chip ice cream?" It was a joke, an inside thing from our first night together. His reply came instantly. "Wait, you smoke?" I blinked. "What?" "Mint. That usually means weed. I didn't realize you smoked." I laughed. "No, I meant ice cream." He didn't laugh. "Oh, because if you did smoke, we'd have a problem." I paused. "I mean, I do occasionally. Not often. It helps with my anxiety sometimes. His next message made my stomach twist. Guess we're not compatible then. I stared at the screen. Was he joking? Kaito had told me he toured with a band. He'd joked about drinking too much whiskey once. This sudden judgment felt sharp and out of nowhere. I tried to explain. I told him it wasn't a big part of my life, that it didn't define me. I even said I was willing to talk about it, to understand his perspective. His response? Don't bother. I cried. I'm not proud of it. I'd only known him a couple of weeks, but it felt like I'd been cut open and discarded for something that didn't even make sense. I called him a coward. Told him he was cruel. Then I blocked his number. That should have been the end. It wasn't. I invited my friend Naima over that night. We made popcorn and watched something dumb on Netflix. I needed the distraction. I needed not to be alone. And then, while Naima was asleep on my beanbag chair, my phone buzzed. A new number. Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I just wanted to see how you'd react. It was Kaito. I didn't reply. He called. And called again. And again. Naima stirred. What's going on? It's him, I whispered, holding up my phone. He won't stop. She sat up, wide awake now. Block him. I did. He's using a different number. Then block that one too. I did. But 10 minutes later, another number. Another text. Why are you ignoring me? By morning, I had received messages from 5 different phone numbers. All the same tone. Apologetic. Then angry. Then desperate. Then sweet. A carousel of emotions I hadn't signed up for. Naima took my phone and helped me block every number. She also helped me lock down my social media, tighten my Instagram privacy, turned off location on Snapchat, even made sure my Facebook wasn't searchable. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The next night, we went to a small house party just off campus. Naima and I stuck together. I told her everything. The texts, the calls, how quickly he'd turned from charming to possessive. She was furious. This is stalking, she said. You need to report him. I don't have proof, I said. And he's in California. Is he? That question made my skin crawl. When we got back to my dorm, I noticed a message request on WhatsApp, and one on Instagram, and another on Facebook, all from newly created accounts, all from him. The messages were the same. I love you. I'm coming back. You can't hide from me. I froze. Naima grabbed my phone, read the messages, then looked at me. We're going to your RA first thing in the morning. We did. Our RA, Marisol, took us seriously. She listened, took notes, and involved the housing director. They escalated the situation to campus security. I gave them everything, screenshots, names, dates, times. A campus officer called Kaito. He was back in California, as far as they could tell. The officer gave him a verbal warning. You need to stop contacting Priya, he said. If you don't, we'll pursue further action. For a while it worked. 12 hours of silence. Then a new number. You think you can get rid of me with a phone call? I cried in the shower that night. I couldn't sleep. Naima stayed with me every night for a week. We told our professors. I moved to a new dorm building, one with a coded entry and security cameras. But Kaito found me again. I don't know how. Maybe someone mentioned me online. Maybe he guessed. He sent flowers to the front desk of the dorm. No note. Just a bouquet of lilies, my favorite. I'd told him that once, in passing. Naima and I decided to go to the police. This time they filed a report. They told me to keep records of every message, every call, every contact. They said, he's technically not committing a crime unless he shows up here. I asked, what if he does? They didn't have an answer. Weeks passed. The messages slowed down, then stopped. I breathed again. I started to feel safe. Until one night, exactly 38 days after he'd last messaged me, I got a text. Another new number. See you Tuesday. That was the day he said he'd come back to Virginia for a visit. I couldn't breathe. I showed Naima. She went pale. We have to do something, she said. I emailed every authority I could think of. Campus security, the dean, the local police. I even called a domestic violence hotline. They all gave the same advice. Stay with friends. Don't go anywhere alone. Document everything. The night before Tuesday, I didn't sleep. I packed a bag. I stayed with Naima and her roommate in their dorm. We kept the blinds shut. We didn't answer the door. Tuesday came and went. No Kaito. No texts. No flowers. I started to doubt myself. Maybe it was another mind game. Maybe he'd never planned to come. but the fear had carved itself into my bones. He came into my life like summer lightning, sudden, hot, impossible to ignore. I met him at a feed store outside Nacogdoches. I was buying dog food. He was flirting with the cashier. I watched him laugh, saw the way his eyes flicked toward me, like he already knew I'd be his. And I was. He asked to carry my bag to the truck. I said sure. He said I had eyes that made people lie. I laughed. Told him he was full of shit. He grinned. Maybe. But I bet you like that. We slept together 3 nights later. It wasn't planned. Nothing about Caleb ever was. We were drinking beer on the tailgate of his truck, talking about nothing. He leaned in, grabbed a fistful of my hair, and kissed me like he was daring me to stop him. I didn't. His hands were rough. His mouth possessive. He liked control, but he wasn't cruel, not then. He knew exactly when to slow down, when to grip tighter, when to whisper my name like it was a secret. I woke up in his bed the next morning, sore and satisfied and completely tangled in him. He didn't ask me to stay. He didn't have to. I moved in a week later. The house was old, 2 bedrooms, tin roof, a porch full of broken rocking chairs. He said it used to be his grandpa's place. Said he liked the quiet. So did I. At first. He was good to me in the beginning. Brought me coffee in bed, kissed the inside of my wrist just because. We cooked dinner together, danced barefoot on the wood floors while the radio played old country songs. He called me darlin', like it hurt his mouth to say anything else. But it didn't stay gentle. It never does. It started with little things. Comments he'd slip in with a smile. Where you think you're going in that shirt? You talk to that guy a little too long. I'm not mad. I just don't like being disrespected. I'd laugh it off. Brush his hand. You're jealous. That's kinda cute. But it wasn't cute. It was a warning. The first time he scared me, it was over a phone call. An old friend, just a guy I used to work with, called to check in. We talked for 3 minutes. Caleb stood in the doorway, arms crossed. After I hung up, he didn't say anything. He just walked over, took the phone from my hand, and threw it against the wall. You don't need people like that, he said. You've got me. I said I was sorry. He kissed my forehead, and bought me a new phone the next day. I should have left then, but leaving someone like Caleb isn't easy. He knew how to pull me back in. With his hands, with his voice, with the way he'd whisper into my skin after sex. No one else gets this. Just me. I believed him. I stopped answering messages, stopped visiting town, stopped thinking in what-ifs. Until the night I found the knife. It was late. I couldn't sleep. Caleb had passed out on the couch with the TV still playing. I got up to get water and tripped over a loose floorboard in the hallway. When I bent down to check it, I felt something underneath. A gap. A space. I pried it open. Inside was a box. It wasn't locked. Inside, a hunting knife, an old Polaroid of a girl I didn't recognize, and a notebook. The girl had a bruise on her throat. The notebook had a list. Dates. Names. Notes in Caleb's handwriting. Too loud. Lied about her ex. Didn't listen. My name was at the bottom. Next to it, still figuring her out. My hands started shaking. I closed the box. Put everything back exactly how I found it. Tried to act normal. But the next morning he was different. Quieter. Watching me. His smile didn't reach his eyes. You sleep okay? He asked. I nodded. Fine. He leaned in. I heard you get up. I froze. Just got water. He didn't blink. You went into the hallway. My stomach dropped. I needed a blanket. He stared at me for a long second. Then smiled. You always were a bad liar. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I waited until he was snoring, then packed a bag. Just the essentials: cash, old phone, car keys. I crept out the back door barefoot, heart in my throat. Made it to the truck. Turned the key. Nothing. Battery was dead. I tried again. Still nothing. Then I saw him in the window. Watching. He didn't move. Didn't come outside. Just stood there, arms crossed, face blank. I ran. I didn't take the road. I knew he'd follow in his truck. I cut through the woods behind the property. I'd only been out there once, years ago, but I remembered the trail. Told myself if I could get to the old fire tower, there might be someone there. A ranger. A hunter. Anyone. I ran for what felt like hours. Branches tore my legs, thorns caught in my hair. I didn't stop. Not even when I heard the engine behind me. He was coming. I could hear him. Him or the truck. Either way, I couldn't go back. When I saw the tower, I almost cried. It was old, rusted, the ladder half broken. But it was tall. I climbed. At the top, I found a radio. Dead. But there was a flare gun. One shot. I waited. Watched the road. It was quiet. And then movement. A truck. His truck. He stepped out. Looked up. Smiled. I just want to talk. I raised the flare gun. He laughed. You gonna shoot me with that? I didn't say anything. He took a step closer. I never hurt you. Not really. Another step. I just needed you to listen. Another. I made you better. I fired. The flare missed. Lit up the trees behind him. He flinched. Then ran. I don't know how long I stayed up there. Eventually someone came. A hunter. He called the sheriff. They found Caleb's truck, but not Caleb. He'd vanished. I told them everything. The knife. The notebook. The names. They're still looking. But I don't think they'll find him. Not unless he wants to be found. I live in a new state now. New name. New life. But I still check the locks 4 times each night. And I keep a knife under the bed. There's a quiet that only exists in the woods. Not silence, never that. The wind moves. Trees creak. Animals rustle. But it's a kind of quiet that makes you feel small. Like the forest is watching. That's why I came here. To feel small. Invisible. Safe. After Daniel, I didn't want to be seen. Not by friends. Not by family. Not even by myself in the mirror. I needed distance from everyone, and especially from him. So I rented a cabin in the mountains for a month. No Wi-Fi. No neighbors. Just me, my books, and a wood stove that took an hour to get going. The first few days were hard. I kept checking my phone like a reflex. I'd reach for it in the dark, half expecting a message from him, even though I'd blocked his number. Even though I'd changed mine. Old habits die hard. Especially when they're carved into you. Daniel was never the kind of man who screamed. He didn't need to. His silence was sharper than any slap. His smile could freeze me in place. He always knew exactly how to make me feel like the problem. Like I was lucky he stayed. It started small. A comment about my clothes. A sigh when I mentioned a male coworker. A rule about not posting certain pictures online. Then came the passwords. Then the isolation. Then the nights he'd drink, and I'd flinch when he set the glass down too hard. I left after he shoved me during an argument about a text he knew I was hiding. I hit the floor. He didn't help me up. Just stared and said, "You make me do this." That was the last time I saw him. Until the woods. But I'll get to that. By day 5 in the cabin, I had a routine. Wake up with the sun. Brew coffee on the propane stove. Read. Walk the trail that looped behind the property. Build a fire before dusk. Drink wine from the bottle. Sleep like the dead. The first night I heard footsteps. I thought it was an animal. It was just past midnight. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in 2 blankets, the fire nearly out. There was a crunch outside, slow, deliberate, like someone stepping on old leaves. Then a pause. Then again. I sat up, heart pounding. The porch light was off. I crept to the window, careful not to let the floorboards creak. Nothing. Just trees and darkness. I told myself it was a deer. Or a bear. Or my imagination. The next morning there were boot prints in the dirt. Too large to be mine. Too clean to be old. I didn't call anyone. Who would I call? I'd made a big deal about going off-grid. About needing space. About not being disturbed. I hadn't even told anyone the name of the rental company. Stupid. Still I stayed. I told myself it was a hiker. That people probably wandered through this area all the time. But I started locking the door during the day. Started keeping the fire poker next to the bed. That night, I dreamed about Daniel. His hand on my neck. His voice in my ear. You can't run forever. I woke up gasping. And the fire was out. And the back door was open. I hadn't opened it. I was sure. I grabbed the poker and crept through the cabin, flipping on every light. No one was there. Nothing was missing. But the fear stayed. I thought about leaving. Packing up and driving the 100 miles back to the nearest town. Booking the first hotel I could find. Sleeping with the lights on. But I didn't. I told myself I was strong. That this was just fear playing tricks. That I wasn't going to let him, or anything that reminded me of him, win. The next day, I walked farther than usual. Followed the trail until it split, then kept going. The trees thinned out, and I reached a ridge that overlooked the valley. The air was clearer there. The sky wide and blue. I sat on a flat rock and felt the sun on my face. And for a moment, I felt okay. Then I saw it, carved into the bark of a tree below the ridge. A name. Harper. My name. I froze. It wasn't old. The bark was still raw, the lines fresh. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. Not even my sister. I ran back to the cabin, locked every door, pulled the blinds, sat on the floor with the poker in my lap, and waited. That night, I slept in my clothes. No wine. No fire. Just silence. And then around 2 a.m. the knock. Not loud. Just one knock. Then nothing. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The knock came again. Then a voice. Calm. Familiar. Harper. Open the door. I almost screamed. It was Daniel. I knew that voice. Knew the smirk it came with. Knew the way he dragged out my name like a joke. I know you're in there, he said. Don't make this weird. I didn't answer. I looked for my phone. Remembered it was dead. Charging in the kitchen. I crawled there, silent, slow. Plugged it in. Waited for the screen to light up. Another knock. Harder. Don't make me break this door. My phone powered on. I dialed 911. No service. Of course not. I grabbed the poker. Moved to the back door. Quietly unlocked it. Slipped out into the dark. The woods were freezing. I didn't have a flashlight, but I knew the trail. I ran. Branches tore at my arms. My breath came in clouds. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I ran until my lungs burned, and my legs gave out, and I collapsed behind a fallen tree. I stayed there until dawn. When I finally crept back to the cabin, he was gone. The front door was cracked. Inside, everything was untouched. Except the mirror. Written in red lipstick. You always were dramatic. I packed in 10 minutes. Drove until I hit a town with a sheriff's station. Filed a report. Gave them his full name. His last known address. The restraining order I'd filed months ago. They said they'd do their best. But I'd left no trail. No digital footprint. No forwarding address. He'd found me anyway. That night, I booked a flight home. I moved in with my sister. Started therapy. Got a dog. Changed my name. I was 17 the first time I thought I could save someone. Her name was Anna. She transferred to my high school halfway through junior year. Always in black jeans and scuffed boots. A hoodie even in the heat. Headphones in, eyes down. She didn't talk much. Most people ignored her or whispered behind her back. Said she was weird. Said she had issues. I was the only one who didn't look away. I found reasons to sit near her in English class. Made jokes she never laughed at until one day she did. It was a quiet laugh, like she wasn't used to the sound. That was enough. We started texting, then hanging out after school, then sneaking out to meet behind the gas station near my neighborhood. She told me things in pieces. About her mom mostly, how she drank, how she screamed, how sometimes she didn't come home for days. She'd sleep in the laundry room under a pile of blankets because it was the only place without holes in the floor. She said she'd never had her own bed. I told my parents she was just a friend. Then one night, I brought her home after practice, and she met my mom in the kitchen. Anna smiled, polite but cautious. My mom offered her a plate of lasagna and asked if she wanted to stay for dinner. Anna stayed for 3 years. At first, it was like taking in a stray cat. She flinched when the door slammed. She never asked for seconds. She didn't know how to accept kindness without apology. But slowly she softened. She moved into the guest room. My mom bought her a comforter with sunflowers on it. My dad fixed the broken drawer in her dresser. She cried the night we gave her a key. We started dating officially that summer. It was intense. Consuming. The kind of love that feels like a secret you're always on the edge of shouting. She clung to me like she was afraid I'd disappear. I didn't mind. I liked being needed. Sex with Anna was like everything else, urgent, searching, full of questions she didn't know how to ask. She was quiet at first, then bolder, like she was learning her own body for the first time. She liked being on top, liked to take control. But sometimes afterward, she'd pull away and stare at the wall, silent. I'd ask what she was thinking. She'd say nothing. But it was never nothing. She started having nightmares. I'd wake up to her thrashing beside me, murmuring things I couldn't understand. Once, she screamed so loudly my dad ran in thinking someone had broken a window. She wouldn't tell us what the dream was about. We tried therapy. She went twice. Said the lady smiled too much. Then she started skipping school. Started locking herself in her room for hours. My mom said she was just adjusting. That healing wasn't linear. That we had to be patient. So we waited. But Anna didn't get better. she got sharper. She'd snap at small things, if I forgot to text back, if my mom knocked on her door without warning. She called my father a control freak. Said my mom was fake nice. She'd accuse me of siding with them, of not understanding her. I tried to hold it together, tried to be the bridge between her and everyone else. It worked for a while. She got a job at a bookstore, started taking a community college class in psychology, said she wanted to understand herself better. She even wrote my mom a birthday card, handwritten, full of gratitude. But then she lost the job, said her manager was a creep. She stopped going to class, stopped showering, stopped eating meals with us. One night, I found her sitting on the kitchen floor at 2 a.m., staring at the oven. "Are you okay?" I asked. She looked up, eyes vacant. "Do you ever feel like you're not real?" I sat down beside her. "What do you mean?" "Like your body's here, but your brain's somewhere else. Like you're just watching." I didn't know what to say. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "If I disappear, would anyone notice?" I wrapped my arms around her. "I would." She stayed silent for a long time, then whispered, "I don't think I can keep pretending." After that, things moved fast. She started writing in notebooks, pages and pages of thoughts, diagrams, sometimes words scribbled over and over until the ink bled through. She'd stop talking mid-sentence and stare into space. She'd cry for hours, then laugh like nothing happened. My mom sat me down one night, said something wasn't right, that we needed to get her help. I agreed. But when we brought it up, Anna exploded. "You all think I'm crazy," she screamed. "You want to lock me up?" "No," I said. "We just want you to feel okay again." She started throwing things, glasses, books, anything within arm's reach. My dad grabbed her wrists. She bit him. Drew blood. The police came. She was taken in for evaluation. They kept her for 72 hours. When she came back, she was quiet. Too quiet. She didn't argue. Didn't cry. Just sat on the couch, staring out the window. The next week, she started taking medication. She got calmer. But it wasn't real calm. It was flatness. She'd sit through meals and say nothing. She'd lie beside me in bed without touching me. Cold. Still. One day, I came home to find the sunflower comforter folded on the porch. She was gone. No note. She didn't answer her phone. I called every hospital, every shelter. Nothing. My mom said maybe it was for the best. But I couldn't accept that. 3 days later, she showed up at my dad's work. She walked in barefoot, wearing the hoodie she'd arrived in 3 years earlier. She was holding a knife. She asked to see him, said she had to cut something loose. The receptionist called the police. My dad talked to her through the glass. "Anna," he said, "you don't want to do this." She stared at him for a long time, then dropped the knife. They took her into custody. This time, it wasn't just a hold. She was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. She'd been hearing voices. She'd stopped taking her meds 2 weeks earlier. She thought we were poisoning her, that I was part of the system, that my dad was trying to erase her. She was committed to a long-term facility. We weren't allowed to visit for the first month. When I finally saw her again, she didn't recognize me. She blinked, smiled faintly. "Do I know you?" I nodded. "Yeah, it's me, Noah." She tilted her head. "You have kind eyes." I cried the whole drive home. She stayed in the facility for 9 months. She's doing better now. Stable. Medicated. In her own apartment, with a caseworker and a therapy cat named Peaches. We write letters sometimes. I don't visit, not because I don't love her, but because I do. And I don't know how to hold that and still live the rest of my life. My mom said we did the right thing. My dad still has the scar on his hand. I met Lacey in a community college poetry class. She sat 3 rows behind me and always wore headphones until the lecture started. Blonde hair in a messy bun, chipped black nail polish, Doc Martens with the stitching half undone. She looked like she didn't care about anything, but when she read her work out loud, her voice shook. Her poems were messy and full of fire. She wrote about things I didn't understand yet, wanting too much, sleeping too little, looking for someone who wouldn't leave. I fell in love with her by week 3. She didn't fall in love so easily, but she let me drive her home. Let me stay the night after her roommate moved out. Let me kiss her behind the campus bookstore, her fingers tangled in my hoodie. She told me I was soft and safe. No one had ever called me that before. We moved in together 6 months later, an apartment above a pawn shop with thin walls and a broken heater. She painted the windows with stained glass film. I cooked ramen, and tried to write stories I never finished. We slept on a mattress on the floor, our legs always tangled, her cold feet tucked against my thighs. Sex with Lacey felt like drowning and breathing at the same time. She liked it slow at first, biting her lip, dragging her nails down my chest, then fast, urgent, like she was trying to outrun something. She'd kiss my neck and whisper things that made my spine arch. She'd laugh when I lost control, but she never stayed in the softness afterward. She'd roll over and light a cigarette, or get up and disappear into the bathroom for an hour. Still, I didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to hear the answers to. Then everything changed. She lost her job at the bookstore, said the manager was a creep, but I saw the unpaid shifts, the warnings, the way she stopped waking up before noon. I offered to cover rent until she found something else. She said I was sweet, said she'd make it up to me. For a while she did. She started drawing again. Even let me read a few new poems. We made love on the couch one night, slow and quiet, her head resting on my chest afterward. But then the people started coming around. Strangers. At first, they were just friends from before. They'd knock on the back door, stay for 20 minutes, then leave without saying goodbye. I asked her once who they were. She said, "You don't want to know." But I did. One night I came home early and found her in the bathroom with a guy named Tyler. He had track marks on both arms and a smile that made my stomach twist. Lacey said they were just talking. Tyler said, "You got a good one. Don't lose him." I found the pipe 2 days later in her sock drawer. I didn't say anything at first. I thought maybe it was a phase, a reaction to losing her job. I told myself she was just experimenting. But her eyes changed. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping. She'd disappear for hours. Her body got thinner, her skin dull. She'd snap when I asked questions, slam doors, cry for no reason. Then the money started vanishing. Cash I kept in a drawer. My debit card. My emergency fund. Gone. I confronted her. She didn't deny it. "I need it," she said, "just to get through the day." I asked her to stop. I begged her. She promised me she would. That night, she curled up in my lap and cried until her whole body shook. I held her and whispered that we'd figure it out. The next morning, she was gone. And so was my laptop. I found her 3 days later in a motel room across town. She opened the door wearing someone else's hoodie and smelling like sweat and smoke. Inside, there were 2 guys I'd never seen before. One of them had a gun on the table. I didn't step inside. "I came to bring you home," I said. She laughed. "You don't get it," she said. "I don't have a home anymore." After that, I blocked her number, changed the locks, told myself it was over. But she kept coming back. Sometimes at night, banging on the door, crying. Sometimes just leaving notes under the mat. "I'm sorry. I miss you. Please." I let her in once. Just once. She was shaking, her lips cracked, her hands cold. She kissed me like she was starving. We ended up on the floor, tangled in a blanket, her body pressed against mine, desperate and trembling. Afterward, she asked me for money. I gave her what I had in my wallet. She left before I could say goodbye. That was the last time I saw her in that apartment. But it wasn't the end. A month later, someone broke in. I came home to the door cracked open, the place ransacked. Drawers pulled out, clothes everywhere. And in the corner, a message scrawled on the wall in lipstick. "You left me." I called the police. They said there wasn't much they could do. I packed everything I owned into my car and drove to a friend's cabin in northern Idaho. No signal, no neighbors, just trees and silence. I stayed there for weeks, tried to feel safe again, but I kept waking up in the middle of the night, convinced I heard footsteps. I'd grip the handle of the bat I kept beside the bed and listened to the wind. Then one night, I saw headlights, a car pulling slowly down the dirt road. I turned off the lights, held my breath. It didn't stop, just passed by. But that was enough. The next morning, I left. I changed my number again, moved to a new city, started over. I still think about her sometimes, about the way she used to read poetry out loud, like every word was bleeding from her, about the way she kissed me that first night, soft, like a promise. But I also remember the pipe, the motel room, the gun, and the message on the wall. Love didn't save her, and staying would have destroyed me. I met Mark in Vienna on a Wednesday afternoon, in a cafe near the Naschmarkt where I used to go to read after class. He asked if he could share my table. I said yes, because I'd been in Austria for 3 months and still hadn't gotten used to sitting alone. He was French, tall, with dark curls and a soft accent that made every sentence sound like a secret. He said he taught high school literature in Lyon. Said he was in Vienna for a conference on post-war poetry. He asked what I was reading. I showed him the cover, Rilke. He smiled. Sad and beautiful. Like all the best things. I laughed. We talked for hours. He was charming in that disarming European way. Effortless compliments, clever jokes, a little self-deprecating. I told myself not to get carried away. I was 22, studying abroad, and he was clearly older. But he didn't press. He just asked if I wanted to meet again, coffee, maybe dinner. I said yes. Our second date was wine and mushroom risotto at a place hidden behind a bookstore. He quoted Neruda. I told him I'd never dated a teacher before. He leaned in and said, "I'm not your teacher." We kissed that night, standing by the canal, the sky heavy with clouds and the smell of rain. He said he was 30. I believed him. Over the next few weeks, we kept seeing each other. Quiet dinners. Walks through the city. He played with my hair and kissed my forehead. He said he liked how I looked when I didn't know he was watching me. I started to feel safe with him. One night, we didn't say goodbye. We ended up in my apartment, the lights off, the sheets tangled around our legs. He moved slowly, deliberately, like he was trying to memorize the shape of me. He whispered things in French I couldn't fully translate, but understood anyway. After, he held me against his chest and said, "I could fall for you, Elise." I smiled into his skin. Then things started to change. He became intense. He'd text constantly, morning, lunch, midnight. "What are you doing? Who are you with? Why didn't you answer?" If I didn't respond right away, he'd show up outside my building. Once, I was walking home from the library and saw him waiting in the cold, leaning against the wall across the street. He hadn't told me he was coming. "I missed you," he said. I told him he couldn't just appear like that. He frowned. "Why not? You're mine." That word made my stomach twist. I started to pull away. I told him I needed space, that my classes were getting harder, that I wasn't ready for something serious. He didn't take it well. He called me selfish, immature, said I wasn't emotionally evolved. He said, "You don't know what it means to be loved." I blocked his number. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. A week later, I received an email from a new address. Subject line, "I forgive you." Inside, a photo of us, one I hadn't taken. Me laughing. Him looking at me. Then more messages. "You looked beautiful in that green coat today. I saw you with that boy. He's not right for you. I'll wait. I'm patient." I went to the university's international office. They took it seriously. Helped me file a report. Suggested I take a break from social media. I stopped going to my favorite cafe. I started looking over my shoulder. Then, the day I flew home for winter break, I saw him again. At the airport. He was standing near my gate, holding a bouquet of white tulips. "Elise," he said, smiling like this was a movie scene. "I had to see you." My throat closed. "How did you know I was flying today?" "I have my ways," he said, stepping closer. I wanted it to be a surprise. I backed away. "You can't be here." People were watching now. I moved toward the security desk. He followed. "I just want to talk," he said. "You're making this harder than it has to be." I turned to the guard and said, "He's following me." Mark was escorted out. I filed another report. I thought I was done with him. But when I landed in Chicago, there was another email waiting. Subject line, "We're not finished." Attached was a photo of me at the airport, dragging my suitcase, head down, unaware. I changed my number. I stayed with my parents and didn't leave the house for days. A week later, I got a letter. No return address. Just a handwritten note. "You don't get to disappear." I called the police. But without a direct threat, they couldn't do much. So I did the only thing I could. I disappeared for real. I changed schools. Deleted every account. Moved to a different city under a different name. I scrubbed myself from every traceable site I could think of. When I first matched with Alex, I felt that little spark in my stomach, the one that feels like possibility. His profile was clean, his photos well lit but casual, and his messages were clever without being try-hard. He said he restored antique furniture and had a rescue cat named Spoons. I'd been single for almost a year post-divorce. I wasn't looking for forever. Just maybe someone who could make me laugh and split a pizza with me on a rainy Sunday. Alex seemed normal. Charming even. He texted me good morning. He remembered my dog's name. He didn't ask for nudes, rare, frankly. After a week of talking, he said, "Want to grab drinks this weekend?" I know a place that's quiet, good lighting, strong bourbon. I said yes. He picked me up in a matte black Jeep that rumbled like it was compensating for something. He wore a fitted Henley dark jeans and a leather cuff around one wrist. I noticed he was taller than I expected. Clean-shaven. Smelled like cedar and smoke. He smiled when I got in. You look even better in person. I laughed. You're not so bad yourself. Not bad, he teased. I'll take it. We went to a bar that felt more like a speakeasy, dim lights, velvet booths, a bartender in suspenders. It was quiet enough to talk, and Alex was easy to talk to. Funny, flirty, but not pushy. We drank old fashions. He told me about his cat. I told him about my ex, just enough to explain the wariness in my eyes. After the second round, he leaned in and said, "Want to go somewhere quieter?" I hesitated. He read it on my face. No pressure. We could just drive around. I'll keep my hands to myself. I should have said no, but there was something magnetic about him, and I was tired of being cautious. Okay, I said, but I'm not sleeping with you tonight. He raised his hands. Scout's honor. We drove out of the city. I watched the lights thin out as he turned onto a narrow road lined with trees. Where are we going? I asked. My place. I've got a sunroom filled with plants. You'll love it. He didn't mention the cats, or the weapons, or the locks. When we pulled up, the house looked like it had been dropped from a horror movie set. Big, old, and leaning just slightly like it was trying to whisper something. Inside, it smelled like lavender and something faintly metallic. There were cats everywhere. On the stairs. In the kitchen. On top of the fridge. Their eyes followed me. Alex chuckled. They're curious about new people. I nodded, trying not to look startled. He offered me water. I asked for tea. He made it in a mug that said, "Trust no one." I should have left then. We sat in the sunroom, except it was night, and the moonlight made everything look silver and strange. Alex told me he collected knives. Knives? I asked, trying to sound casual. Antique ones. Military. Ceremonial. Some are cursed probably, he said with a grin. I laughed politely. He got up and opened a cabinet. Inside were at least a dozen blades, some curved, some serrated, one shaped like a claw. Don't worry, he said. I keep them for the energy. I didn't know what that meant. Something shifted in his face then. The lightness dropped. He sat back down and looked at me too long. You're quiet, he said. I'm just taking it all in. You're not scared of me, are you? No, I lied. He leaned in. You should be. I smiled, trying to play it off. You're messing with me. He didn't smile back. Then he stood and locked the sunroom door. From the inside, my stomach turned. Alex, I said. He turned the key and slid it into his pocket. Don't worry, he said. I'm not going to hurt you. That's what people say before they do. I stood up. I think I should go. He stepped between me and the door. Did I do something wrong? He asked. His voice was calm, but there was an edge. No, I said. I'm just tired. He didn't move. Then something behind me shattered. A cat knocked over a planter. Alex turned his head. I grabbed a ceramic lamp off the table and swung. It hit his shoulder. He shouted. I ran. Out of the room, through the hall, past the cats that screamed and scattered. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to get out. The front door was locked. I found the side door in the kitchen. Unlatched it. Ran barefoot down the porch and into the dark. He didn't follow. Not then. I made it to the road. Flagged down a pickup truck full of teenagers who looked at me like I was a ghost. They drove me to a gas station. I called the police. Filed a report. They searched the house. He was gone. Vanished. The cats were taken by animal control. The knives by evidence. They never found him. Alex, or whatever his real name was, disappeared. I changed my number. Deleted my dating apps. I started therapy. Sometimes I still dream about the sunroom. The knives. His eyes. Sometimes I think I see him in crowds. But I don't run anymore. I carry pepper spray. I trust my gut. And I never, ever go to anyone's house on the first date. Would you like to continue with the next story, or revisit one of the previous ones for expansion or revision? Hotkeys. C. Confirm and continue to the next story rewrite. E. Expand this version with more suspense or NSFW elements. A. Offer an alternate version of Jake's true face. Question: ask a question or request a specific change. 12:42 p.m. Share. Speak. At 11 Labs. I had just moved to Missoula for art school. It was my first time living away from my family in Atlanta, And even though I'd always thought of myself as independent, being all alone out west, surrounded by pine forests and snow-capped mountains, made me realize how far from home I really was. It was beautiful, sure, but lonely. I didn't know anyone here. The classes were small, and the social scene was quiet. One night, after finishing a charcoal sketch of a deer skull for my anatomy class, I got bored. I downloaded a dating app on a whim, one of those that everyone says is full of weirdos but still uses anyway. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to talk to, maybe hang out with, and feel a little less alone. That's when I matched with Rami. His profile was full of music. There was a video of him playing a keyboard in the woods, another of him singing into a mic in what looked like a cabin. His bio said he was into jazz fusion and experimental film, and that he was originally from Tunisia but had grown up in Minneapolis. He had this cool, offbeat style, curly hair that fell in loose spirals around his face, always wearing vintage jackets, and he seemed to be smiling in every photo. He messaged me first. "Hey Nia, I like your sketch of the crow with the broken wing. There's something sad and beautiful about it." I was surprised he'd even noticed. Most guys just commented on looks. We started talking, and it was easy. Effortless. He told me about a film he was scoring for a local filmmaker and how he'd converted his garage into a music studio. I told him about my art, my homesickness, and how I missed southern food. He offered to make me shakshuka sometime. I didn't even know what that was, but I smiled and said sure. After a week of chatting, we agreed to meet in person. We kept it simple. Coffee at a little place called Break Espresso downtown. He brought sheet music to show me, and I sketched his hands while he talked. It was actually nice. He wasn't creepy or over the top. We talked about our favorite childhood cartoons and shared stories about growing up in completely different parts of the world. By the end of the coffee, I didn't want the night to end. "Want to come hear me play something?" he asked. "I've been working on a new piece in my garage studio. It's not far." Normally, I wouldn't say yes. I've always been cautious. But something about Rami made me feel like I could trust him. Maybe it was the way he talked about music like it was sacred, or maybe I just didn't want to go back to my dorm and stare at my ceiling all night. So I said yes. His place was on the outskirts of town, near Lolo National Forest. The houses were farther apart there, with long driveways and tall trees everywhere. His was a small, single-story home with a wide gravel driveway and a detached garage out back. It looked cozy, like the kind of place someone could write a novel in. He led me into the garage through a side door, and I was surprised by how warm it was inside. There were rugs layered on the concrete floor, tapestries on the walls, and string lights hanging from the ceiling. In the middle of the room was a digital piano on a stand, surrounded by amps and cables. A few guitars leaned against the wall, and there was a small couch tucked in the corner. "Make yourself at home," he said, sitting down at the piano. "Let me show you what I've been working on." He began to play. It was haunting, the kind of music that makes you feel like something important is happening even if you don't know what. His hands moved quickly, confidently, and I sat there mesmerized. I closed my eyes, letting myself sink into the sound. When the music stopped, I opened my eyes, and he was staring at me. Not in a flirty way. In a way that made my stomach twist. "You smell like my aunt's house," he said quietly. I blinked. "What?" He leaned closer, still seated at the piano. "Like cloves and vinegar. Like old wood and something familiar." I didn't know what to say. I laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. I guess that's one way to describe someone's perfume. But he didn't laugh. He stood up slowly and walked toward the couch where I was sitting. His entire demeanor had changed. Less casual, more intense. His eyes were wide and unblinking. I could feel my heart start to race. "I've never met anyone who smells like that," he said, taking another step. "It's like I knew you before." "Rami," I said, trying to keep things light, "I think you're reading way too much into my shampoo." He didn't stop. He sat down beside me, closer than I was comfortable with, and stared at me like he was trying to see through me. "Do you believe in past lives?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, shifting away. "I've never really thought about it." "I do." His voice was a whisper now. "And I think you were someone important to me, back then." "Okay." That was enough. I stood up. "I think I should head back. I've got class early tomorrow." He didn't move. Just watched me. Then he smiled, but it wasn't the same easy grin from before. "You're scared now, aren't you?" he said. I didn't answer. I grabbed my bag and walked to the door. "Hey Nia," he called as I opened it. "If you dream of me tonight, let me know. Sometimes the memories come back in dreams." I didn't say anything. Just walked quickly to my car, locked the doors, and drove away without looking back. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way he looked at me, like I was a puzzle he had already solved. I blocked his number the next morning. He sent me one last message through the app before I unmatched him. If you're not ready to remember, that's okay. But I'll be waiting. We always find each other again. After that, I avoided the music building on campus. I didn't go to any of the local open mic nights where I knew he might show up. For weeks, I felt like someone was watching me whenever I walked home from class. I started locking my dorm door even when I was inside. I never told anyone the details, not my roommate, not my professors. I was embarrassed. I'd let my guard down, and it almost cost me. It started with a martini and ended with handcuffs. I matched with Carter on a Friday. His first message said, "If you like dogs, bad puns, and overpriced cocktails, I think we just became soulmates." It was charming, not too polished. His photos showed him hiking, holding a golden retriever, and one where he was mid-laugh on a rooftop bar. The kind of profile that screams safe but still interesting. We talked for a couple of days. He was funny, responsive, and asked real questions, not just WID. He said he was in tech, worked remote, and lived on the edge of the city. On Sunday, he asked me out. "Drinks at 86, he suggested. "Best cocktails in the city. I'll even let you steal my fries." I agreed. I wore black jeans, a silk top, and low boots. Something cute enough to say, "I care," but not so much that it screamed, "I tried too hard." He picked me up, which, in hindsight, was my first mistake. But I'd shared my location with 2 friends and told them to check in if I didn't text them by 11. Carter looked even better in person. Tall, clean cut. His smile was easy, his handshake firm. He smelled like cedarwood and fresh laundry. The bar was dim and stylish, all exposed brick and flickering candles. We sat at a booth near the back. He ordered an old-fashioned. I got a dirty martini. Conversation flowed. He told me about his dog, his attempts at woodworking, and how he once tried to build his own desk and ended up with a splinter in a very uncomfortable place. I laughed. Too easily, maybe. I was 1.5 drinks in when I started to feel off. Not drunk. Not even tipsy. Just heavy. Like my limbs were moving slower than my brain. I blinked hard. "Hey," Carter said gently, "you okay?" Yeah. Just tired, maybe." My words felt slurred. "You want to go back to my place? I can get you some water, or Uber you home." I opened my mouth, intending to say no. But instead I nodded. Everything after that is a blur. The car ride. The slow sway of streetlights. The scent of his cologne, too strong now, cloying. I remember stumbling through a door. And then black. When I woke up, everything was wrong. The room was cold. The floor was cement. There was no bed, just a metal table, like the kind you'd find in a morgue. I was strapped to it. Wrist restraints. Ankle cuffs. Leather and steel. Panic bloomed so fast it burned. I screamed. No answer. The room was dim, lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. And in the corner, surgical equipment. Scalpels. Forceps. Syringes. Neatly arranged on a tray. My stomach turned. The door creaked open. Carter stepped in wearing gloves. "Morning sunshine," he said. My throat went dry. "What is this?" He tilted his head, like I was being silly. "You're special. I knew it the moment I saw you." "You drugged me," I said, shaking. He smiled. "I just needed you to be still." I started crying. Please let me go." He walked over and brushed hair from my face. "Don't cry. I'm not going to hurt you. I just need to understand you better. What's inside?" I screamed again. He didn't flinch. He turned, picked up a syringe, and said, "You'll sleep again soon." He walked out without using it. That's when I realized he was preparing something. I had minutes, maybe. I looked around. My purse was gone. My phone was missing. But my jacket, my light denim jacket, had been tossed over a nearby chair. And I remembered something. My backup phone. I kept an old iPhone in my jacket. No SIM card, just Wi-Fi. I used it for music. It could still connect to iMessage when I had a signal. I twisted my wrist. The restraint had some give. Not much, but enough. I wrenched and pulled, skin tearing slightly. My wrist slipped free. I reached for the chair, dragging it closer with my foot. Got the jacket. The phone was still in the inside pocket. I powered it on with shaking fingers. One flicker. Battery low, 5%. But it connected to Wi-Fi. I opened messages. My best friend Tasha was the first name. I typed, "Help. I'm trapped. 293 Redstone Lane. Basement. Call cops." Then I hit send. The phone died right after. I lay back down, slipped my wrist back into the strap, and tried to look still. I heard footsteps 2 minutes later. Carter came back in holding a notebook. He didn't notice the phone was gone. "Ready?" he asked. I didn't respond. He leaned over me. Then, the sound of sirens. He froze. "No," he whispered. I started screaming. "I'm down here. Basement." He panicked. Threw the notebook. Ran. Upstairs I heard banging. A door crashing open. Voices. Shouts. Boots. Then a man yelling, "Clear the hall. Get her out." A flashlight beam hit my face. 2 officers rushed in. "Oh my God," one of them said. "Hands off the table," the other said gently. "You're safe. We've got you." I sobbed as they undid the restraints. I'd never cried that hard in my life. They helped me into a blanket, up the stairs, into the night. Carter was arrested in the backyard, trying to climb the fence. He had surgical plans printed on his computer. A folder of photos. A list of names. I was number 7. The others were missing. I testified in court 6 months later. He got life without parole. I moved cities. Changed jobs. Started over. But sometimes I still dream of that room. The table. The tray. The look in his eyes when he said, "What's inside?" I remember what the officer told me as he walked me out that night. "You saved your own life." And I did. With 5% battery and a backup plan. Never again will I get in someone's car on the first date. And I always share my location. Because monsters don't live under the bed. They have dating profiles. And good smiles. And plans. When I first matched with Alex, I felt that little spark in my stomach, the one that feels like possibility. His profile was clean, his photos well lit but casual, and his messages were clever without being try-hard. He said he restored antique furniture and had a rescue cat named Spoons. I'd been single for almost a year post-divorce. I wasn't looking for forever, just maybe someone who could make me laugh and split a pizza with me on a rainy Sunday. Alex seemed normal, charming even. He texted me good morning. He remembered my dog's name. He didn't ask for nudes, rare, frankly. After a week of talking, he said, "Want to grab drinks this weekend? I know a place that's quiet, good lighting, strong bourbon." I said yes. He picked me up in a matte black Jeep that rumbled like it was compensating for something. He wore a fitted Henley dark jeans and a leather cuff around one wrist. I noticed he was taller than I expected. Clean-shaven. Smelled like cedar and smoke. He smiled when I got in. "You look even better in person." I laughed. "You're not so bad yourself." "Not bad," he teased. "I'll take it." We went to a bar that felt more like a speakeasy, dim lights, velvet booths, a bartender in suspenders. It was quiet enough to talk, and Alex was easy to talk to. Funny, flirty, but not pushy. We drank old fashions. He told me about his cat. I told him about my ex, just enough to explain the wariness in my eyes. After the second round, he leaned in and said, "Want to go somewhere quieter?" I hesitated. He read it on my face. "No pressure. We could just drive around. I'll keep my hands to myself." I should have said no, but there was something magnetic about him, and I was tired of being cautious. "Okay," I said, "but I'm not sleeping with you tonight." He raised his hands. "Scout's honor." We drove out of the city. I watched the lights thin out as he turned onto a narrow road lined with trees. "Where are we going?" I asked. "My place. I've got a sunroom filled with plants. You'll love it." He didn't mention the cats, or the weapons, or the locks. When we pulled up, the house looked like it had been dropped from a horror movie set. Big, old, and leaning just slightly like it was trying to whisper something. Inside, it smelled like lavender and something faintly metallic. There were cats everywhere. On the stairs. In the kitchen. On top of the fridge. Their eyes followed me. Alex chuckled. "They're curious about new people." I nodded, trying not to look startled. He offered me water. I asked for tea. He made it in a mug that said, "Trust no one." I should have left then. We sat in the sunroom, except it was night, and the moonlight made everything look silver and strange. Alex told me he collected knives. "Knives?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Antique ones. Military. Ceremonial. Some are cursed probably," he said with a grin. I laughed politely. He got up and opened a cabinet. Inside were at least a dozen blades, some curved, some serrated, one shaped like a claw. "Don't worry," he said. "I keep them for the energy." I didn't know what that meant. Something shifted in his face then. The lightness dropped. He sat back down and looked at me too long. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm just taking it all in. You're not scared of me, are you?" "No," I lied. He leaned in. "You should be." I smiled, trying to play it off. "You're messing with me." He didn't smile back. Then he stood and locked the sunroom door. From the inside, my stomach turned. "Alex," I said. He turned the key and slid it into his pocket. "Don't worry," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you. That's what people say before they do." I stood up. "I think I should go." He stepped between me and the door. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. His voice was calm, but there was an edge. "No," I said. "I'm just tired." He didn't move. Then something behind me shattered. A cat knocked over a planter. Alex turned his head. I grabbed a ceramic lamp off the table and swung. It hit his shoulder. He shouted. I ran. Out of the room, through the hall, past the cats that screamed and scattered. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to get out. The front door was locked. I found the side door in the kitchen. Unlatched it. Ran barefoot down the porch and into the dark. He didn't follow. Not then. I made it to the road. Flagged down a pickup truck full of teenagers who looked at me like I was a ghost. They drove me to a gas station. I called the police. Filed a report. They searched the house. He was gone. Vanished. The cats were taken by animal control. The knives by evidence. They never found him. Alex, or whatever his real name was, disappeared. I changed my number. Deleted my dating apps. I started therapy. Sometimes I still dream about the sunroom. The knives. His eyes. Sometimes I think I see him in crowds. But I don't run anymore. I carry pepper spray. I trust my gut. And I never, ever go to anyone's house on the first date. Would you like to continue with the next story, or revisit one of the previous ones for expansion or revision? Hotkeys. C. Confirm and continue to the next story rewrite. E. Expand this version with more suspense or NSFW elements. A. Offer an alternate version of Jake's true face. Question, ask a question or request a specific change. 12:42 p.m. Share. Speak. At 11 Labs. I wasn't even supposed to be on Hinge. My best friend set up the profile after my last breakup, claiming I needed a soft reset and someone with a decent jawline. I rolled my eyes, but I let her swipe on my behalf for a week. That's how I ended up talking to Ben. He didn't say hey or compliment my smile. He opened with, "Transformers is the greatest cinematic achievement of our time, don't argue." Naturally, I argued. I told him Bumblebee deserved his own Oscar and that Michael Bay needed to sit down. He said he liked that I had opinions. I liked that he didn't use emojis like a 7th grader. We texted for 4 days before he asked me out. "Want to see the new Transformers this Friday?" he wrote. "Only if you promise not to quote Optimus Prime during the emotional scenes." "I make no promises," he replied. That's how I ended up in skinny jeans and a slightly risky black tank top, waiting outside a multiplex for a man I'd never met in person. When he pulled up, he smiled like he already knew I was going to be trouble. Ben was tall, scruffy in a good way, and had this easy confidence that made me feel like I'd known him longer than 5 days. His t-shirt had a faded Decepticon logo on it. "Nice shirt," I said. He grinned. "Thought I'd dress up for you." At the concession stand, he insisted on paying. Got us a giant popcorn and 2 sodas. I asked for extra butter. He said, "You're dangerous." The theater was half full, which was ideal for a first date with someone I wasn't sure yet if I'd want to hold hands with. We sat near the back, just enough distance from everyone else to feel like we had our own little world. The lights dimmed. He leaned over and whispered, "Prepare to have your mind blown by giant robots." I rolled my eyes and stole the first handful of popcorn. The first act was loud. All explosions, screeching tires, and oddly emotional robot monologues. Ben kept making little jokes under his breath. I laughed more than I expected. And then I made one really bad decision. I popped a giant handful of popcorn into my mouth during a chase scene, swallowed wrong, and choked. At first, I thought it was just a tickle. I coughed once, then tried to clear my throat. But it didn't stop. My body panicked before my brain did. Something was stuck. I grabbed Ben's arm, trying to signal that I couldn't breathe. His eyes went wide. "Are you choking?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't do anything. I felt the air lock inside me like a fist. My chest burned. My vision blurred. Ben stood up so fast he knocked his soda to the floor. "Help," he shouted. "She's choking." People turned, confused. The screen behind us blared with robot dialogue. I felt myself slipping. Then someone else moved. A woman, mid-30s maybe, climbed over the seats like she'd done it before. "I'm a nurse," she said. She pulled me to my feet and wrapped her arms around me from behind. The first Heimlich thrust jolted my whole body. Nothing. Second, still no relief. My knees buckled. I thought I was going to pass out. Then, on the third thrust, something dislodged. A wet chunk of popcorn flew from my mouth and hit the seat in front of us. I gasped. Air. I collapsed into Ben's arms, sobbing and shaking. The nurse held my shoulder. "You're okay. You're okay." I couldn't speak. I nodded. Ben looked like he was about to cry. The nurse said, "You should take her to urgent care. Just to be safe." Ben didn't hesitate. He helped me to the car, his arm around me the whole time. In urgent care, I finally stopped shaking. My throat was raw and sore, but the nurse on duty said I was going to be fine. On the way back, Ben asked if I wanted to go home. "I don't want to be alone," I admitted. He drove us to a drive-in diner and got milkshakes. We sat in the parking lot in silence for a few minutes, sipping from waxy paper cups. Then I said, "Well, that was humiliating." He laughed softly. "You almost died. That's not humiliating. That's, honestly, kind of badass." I looked at him. "You didn't even finish your popcorn." He shrugged. "You were more important." I stared at him for a long moment, and something settled in my chest. A quiet knowing. This man didn't flinch. He yelled for help in a crowded theater. He caught me when I collapsed. He drove me to urgent care without being asked. I reached across the seat and took his hand. "Ben." "Yeah. Next time, let's do something less traumatic." He smiled. "Like skydiving?" I groaned. "Just say you're trying to kill me slowly." 6 months later, we were back at that same theater. He bought the popcorn again, extra butter, of course. Halfway through the previews, he handed me the bag. I reached inside and felt something small and hard nestled in the warm kernels. I pulled it out. A ring. I turned to him in shock, and he just grinned. "No choking this time, okay?" I didn't cry until the movie started. And yes, we stayed for the whole thing. Even Optimus couldn't top that night.